Now let us see how the client-server networking takes place. On one side we have the client systems, we have servers, and on the other side we have host systems. A server is a mainframe computer with dedicated functions assigned to the server. So those are the mainframe computers with higher computing capabilities, which supports the mid-range and the microcomputers. A server might be the purpose of one main server or mainframe computer is storage, and that server or the mainframe computer is dedicated to conduct the process of capturing and processing and storing the information. So those mid-range computers and microcomputers that are used in the client level or in the host system level is connected to the mainframe computers. Another server might be implemented, or a mainframe computer might be implemented or built in order to support the functioning of the software or the information system or ERP, enterprise resource planning, ERP, or other expert system or decision support system that are used by the mid-range computers or the microcomputers implemented in the organization. So this is how the client and the server is networked. For example, a customer might be using a mid-range system in order to connect to the bank. When a person gets connected to a banking system, the customer or the consumer is interacting with the server of the bank, and when he makes a banking transaction, he makes the transaction with the mainframe computer or the server of the bank. Immediately corresponding information has to be passed to the branch and the bank of the consumer in which the consumer is possessing an account. So this transaction has to be networked, and this networking is made possible through a client-server networking. Or when we log into the railway irctc.co.in for booking a railway ticket, the consumer is logging into the system or connecting to the mainframe system of the railway, and once you start using, he is interacting with the mainframe system in order to book the ticket. And once the customer has booked the ticket, the server and the corresponding railway stations or the corresponding departments and business processes is being networked for exchanging the information and completing the business process. So business process is completed using a client-server networking systems. And this is the basic computer system part, where on one side we have the input devices. The examples of input devices include keyboards, mouse, optical scanners, barcode scanners, RFID, radio frequency tags, light sensors, sound sensors, infrared cameras, and other number of devices are available for getting the input. So this input is collected in different forms, different contents. The input is collected and it is sent to the processing unit. According to the type and nature form of the business process, we can use a different number of input devices that collect the data, and this data or this information is sent to the central processing unit, where you have special purpose memory, or you call it a CPU of the machine, central processing unit of the machine, where these data or these signals are converted, is processed, and then the information gets stored, as well as it will be shown through the output devices, monitors, printers, thermal printers, and etc. are the different output devices that we use. The information can be stored in the primary device, or it can be stored into the secondary storage devices. A number of organizations need to back up the data or back up the information that is being processed, and it might not be possible for them to store the entire information on the primary devices. One, it becomes cumbersome to process, to store all these information into one system, and the retrieval becomes difficult. So a secondary storage devices, a manual organization might be recording all this data or information into a CD or into a DVD, or the organization might be using the other hard disks in order to store the data. A larger organization with larger number of employees with implemented information system will be using a server in order to capture the data and store the data. That forms secondary storage devices. The advanced versions of information system will be using cloud computing, where it is connected to the internet and the data is stored in a different place, where a different host provides the service for storing the data. And through the telecommunication and network technology, using internet, you will get connected to such a system, to a cloud, and then retrieve the data through internet, and then you might be using the device. So this is the basic computer system components, and a lot of innovation, technologies, developments have happened in this area in order to have a better platform for computing facilities. These are the various input technology trends that have developed across the time. Let us see the trends. It is directed towards input devices that are more natural and easy to use. So a number of input devices have developed on this trend line. The first generations have punched cards and paper tape system, where the input device itself was much more complicated and not so user friendly. The second generations had punched cards. The third generation have key to tape disk for input. Fourth generation use keyboard data entry pointing devices, which include mouse, optical scanning devices, where we have scanners, optical scanners, we have sound scanners, etc., etc. And today, fifth generation have voice recognition. Even in your mobile, you are using voice recognition. Even VR is used for password detection, etc. Speech devices, touch devices, handwriting recognition. As we discussed, radio frequency identification for input device. Scanners, thermal scanners, heat sensing scanners, pressure scanners, moisture scanners. A number of input devices are generated, and these are all forming the basis of input technology. So, from the first generation, 3 decades back and to the current generation of computers, a number of changes have happened for adding the input or collecting data or collecting signals or collecting information which has to be sent for further processing. These are the common input devices which we were discussing. Keyboards. Innovations and development have happened in keyboards. Today we have wireless keyboards. Today we have much more efficient and effective keyboards which have high durability, etc. Pointing devices such as mouse. Again, it has also changed, where earlier we were using a roller ball in the pointing devices, which has changed as an optical pointing devices, and number of changes have happened. Pen-based computing, speech recognition, optical scanning, MICR or magnetic ink character recognition. We were using MICR codes, etc. We have smart cards, we have digital cameras, we use infrared cameras for scanning. A number of common input devices are used in organization for the purpose of collecting the data or information. Output technology and trend have also changed. The trend is on natural communication, quick, clear, cost effective, etc., etc. First generation, we had punched cards, printed reports and documents. Second generation also had the same output media. Third generation includes printed reports and documents, video displays, CRT monitors, LCD monitors, LED monitors, etc., etc. Fourth generation, video displays, audio responses, printed reports and documents. And fifth generation includes video displays, voice responses, hyperlinked multimedia documents, clubbing the number of output media together and present the information in a single medium. Video output. Earlier we have CRT, today we have LCDs, which further transformed into LEDs, which had different levels of resolutions. They are changing, as we know. Again, printed output has also changed, inkjets to laser printers, and we could see that the form of the output have changed, the resolution, the clarity, the cost, the time factor, the reliability, durability, the fastness in which the output devices work, perform, all has changed and advanced as far as the information system is concerned. Let us see the storage trends that have changed. Trend is, earlier we have a smaller storage space, today we have very, very large storage space. As read in a book, 5 or 6 decades back, there was no generation of data and storage of data. And what is generated in quantum these days is data. Every time we breathe, we are generating data. Every time we undergo a business process, we are generating data. And hence, we need to store the data. We need to communicate the data. We need to communicate information. We need to store the information. And it is very natural that the size of the storage have to increase. The speed with which we can communicate must increase. These are all natural demand, because every day passes by, we are generating more and more data. The quantum of data generated in the whole world has increased, has gone in multifold times, and hence these are natural requirements. The primary storage in first generation include magnetic drums. Second generation include magnetic core. Third generation also continued with magnetic core. Fourth generation, large scale integration, semiconductor memory chips, the fifth generation had very large scale integration with semiconductor memory chips. Another advancement, another trend that has come is the size has come down. The size of the storage devices have come down. Secondary storage, earlier we have magnetic tape and magnetic drums, like the tapes and the floppy disk that we had. It continued with second generation and third generation. It later developed into magnetic disk, optical disk and magnetic tapes, and fifth generation include optical disk and magnetic disk. Today the latest and it further continues, and examples include your CDs, your floppy disk, your DVDs, your hard disk. Later today we have solid state data storing devices. These are all the advancements that have happened in the advancement, and the trend is massive capacities are developed using magnetic and optical media. These are the primary and storage media. On the left side, as we move up, we are looking into the components such as access, speed, storage capacity, durability, cost, etc. The first side we had semiconductor memories which had direct access, and they are concerned to be primary storage. We had magnetic disk, floppy disk, hard disk and RAIDs. They include the primary storage. Then we have sequential access through magnetic tapes, which forms the part of secondary storage, and the much familiar optical discs that we use, CD-ROMs, CD disk with rewritable options, DVD disk. So this includes the primary and secondary storage medium that we are using. And the cost has changed, the cost factor has changed, the storage capacity has changed, the durability factor has changed, reliability factor has changed, the speed with which we could exchange the data or the data access have changed. So these are all huge changes that have happened to the storage devices or the hardware component of the information system. To summarize what we have discussed, we have been looking into the basic hardware components of the information system. A computer system is a system of information processing components that perform input processing, output storage and control functions. So this is a basic entity of a computing system. It must have the capacity for input, it must have the capacity for processing, it must have capacity for output. Now what we need to understand is, as business organizations are transforming, as the number of business processes are changing, the hardware part in terms of inputs have changed, processing have changed, and output have also changed. Let us take an example of a stock exchange where we are looking at real-time data. Hence, the transfer of data has to be fast, it has to be real-time, storage of data has to be real-time, retrieval of data have to be real-time, retrieval of information have to be real-time. That is what brings the competitiveness of this particular business process. So we need a computing system that match to the requirement of the business, and today we have. The advancement in technology have resulted in such systems. Let us take an example of a hospital. The business process primarily require the accuracy of information. The validity and reliability has to be accurate. Today we live in an era where in hospitals, surgeries are not done by doctors but are done by robots. We call it as robotics, where we need a computer system which is so accurate that a doctor uses the technology of robotics to perform surgery. The doctor might be located in another place, the surgery is happening in another hospital. So the requirement is totally different. It has to be failure proof. It should not result in lags. It should not result in glitches. So the requirement is different, and the advancement, the research, the development has been so prominent that we have systems that caters to the need. Consider the railway corporation, Indian Railway, which produce massive quantum of data. Every passenger books a ticket, every passenger takes a train and make a travel, every cargo loaded, every signal the train passes. Any business process is generating data, and this data needs to be stored. It needs to be processed. Think of the volume of computing that is required in such a huge system. So we need computing system for this purpose. We need hardware for functioning of this system. We need a number of input devices. We need very strong processing system. We need output devices which communicate the processed information. And the computer hardware component include input and output devices, which we were discussing. Processing unit, a primary and a secondary storage. And there are, as we discussed, there are three major categories of computers: micro computers, mid-range computers, and mainframe computers. A small chip implemented in a number of machines that we are using. There's a microcomputer that we are using. To the mid-range computers that people use in their workstations, to a mainframe computer where all the systems are connected, which has a higher processing capability, higher storage capability, higher processing capability. Integrating all these different components of computers that are implemented in system will result in forming an entity of hardware that runs the software of the organization. Microcomputers are used as personal computers but are also interconnected in a variety of telecommunication networks. Another advancement that has happened in the area of networking communication, a very strong development has happened in networking communication, where these micro, mid-range and mainframe computers are connected through different networks: LAN, optical fiber cables, internet, intranet, extranet. A number of communication technology, which later we will discuss in the coming chapters, are used to connect, used to integrate, used to connect all this kind of systems, which later turn out to be the entity of information system. Mid-range computers are increasingly being used as powerful network servers and for many multi-user business data processing and scientific applications. Mainframe computers are large and more powerful and are used to handle information processing needs for larger organizations that are geographically dispersed, organizations which are based on information technology, organizations which deals with large number of consumers, organization which deals with very large number of suppliers and very large number of stakeholders, number of end users, very large number of end users using the system will definitely need a mainframe computer for the organization to perform. Examples include the banking system, the railways, the air transport, the water transport corporations, organizations, universities, etc., etc. They will definitely require such strong mainframe computers for their functioning. And a number of peripheral devices are used for input and output, come in variety shapes, sizes, and today we are seeing the different types of products. Future trends are towards devices that communicate naturally and are quick and easier to use. So these are the various hardware components, the computer hardware that is used in the information system for the organizations to perform and work.